Hi, soulmates. Welcome to the Honest Fashion Academy. My name is Justice. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here with me. And if you're just in this channel for the first time, please subscribe and turn on the notification button so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. So without wasting much of your time, of course, it's not a waste. In this video, I'm going to be showing you if you are a total beginner in fashion designing, this video is very important to you because I was once a beginner and I know what it means to actually try to do some things, especially if you're being self-taught, okay? So watch this video to the end and see the common things that you need to do before you actually start sewing, or the common knowledge that you need to have in order to make your sewing or drafting process a very seamless one. You need to understand these basic things in order to make your sewing journey or your drafting journey a very easy one. Once you understand these concepts or the things that are involved, you'll be able to do a lot of things on your own, understand what you're doing without needing so much help or so much guidance. Whatever you come across, you will know how to go about it. Okay, so keep watching and let's go right in. Okay, so mates, so number one thing you need to know as a beginner is that the total circumference of a human body, the round circumference of a human body is usually divided by 4, right? 2 for the front and 2 for the back. Okay, so if you have your fabric, I want to assume that this is our fabric, okay? This here is our fabric. For the front, we are going to fold into 2. So this 2 here is for the front part of the body, and folding another 2 again is for the back part of the body. So all together here we have 4 places like this for the front, 1 2, and then for the back 1 2. Okay, so total measurement is divided into 4. Now, if you want to cut the front separate, that is allowed. And if you want to cut the back separate, that is equally allowed. So let's just try and cut the front this way. Now, the part that is closed, as I folded it like this part that is closed is the center front. That is the middle of the front body, right? So you have something like this. From here to here, you have your shoulder, and we're coming to that, and then the neckline, and this is it. Okay, the neckline, and then we'll get to the armhole and to the body of the measurement of the person. This is half length, and then we go over to the hip line like so. Okay, so we'll be using this for illustration purpose so that you'll be able to understand what we are talking about. So this is the front. Once you cut it this way, remember that this is just for illustration purpose. We'll have something like this. Okay, neckline, armhole. This armhole is somehow right. So we have the neckline, we have the shoulder, we have the armhole, this is the waistline, and this is the hip line, right? So this is for the front. You fold into 2. The same applies to the back also. The part that is folded this way is the center back. That is the middle of the back. The same way you cut the front. The difference will be that the back neckline is a bit higher than the front neckline. Okay, so if we are to cut the back separate, we'll probably do it the same way, like so. Cut the shoulders and the armhole, and then the full length. So we have the back this way. So the basic thing we're talking about is that the measurement is folded into 4 places, 2 for the front and 2 for the back. So number 2 thing you need to know is that the back shoulder, number 2 is the shoulder. The back shoulder is very, very important when taking um, measurements, and is divided into two. So the back shoulder is measured this way. This is the whole of the back. We're going to measure from this point, the shoulder point, to the next shoulder point across the back. From here to here, we'll measure it and then divide it into two, because we're going to be cutting the back into two like this, and also we're going to use it for the front as well. So we'll divide into two, and cut here, we'll also divide into two and mark the same measurement. They are supposed to be on the same line. Okay, so the back shoulder, very important when making a garment. When making a garment, the back shoulder is very, very important. We usually divide that into two, not into four. The measurements that are divided into four are the bust circumference, the waist circumference, the hip circumference. Okay, so these are the three measurements that are divided into four. Any other one can divided into two. Now, the third we're going to talk about is our shoulder level. Shoulder level is usually slopy. Okay, the shoulder level is usually slopy. Now, when you have this, the point of the shoulder from the neckline is not straight. The reason I had to slant it this way. If you look at your shoulder, you will know that from the neck point to the end of the shoulder, right, is not on a straight line, it is slopy. And for that reason, we're going to, for the front, we'll minus slant it by 1.5 for the front, and for the back we'll slant it by 1 inch. 1.5 inch for the front, 1 inch for the back when drafting a basic body. So once we have this applies to both the front and the back, both the front and the back. So once we fold this way and cut, we slant the front by 1.5 inches from the neck point, and then the back by 1 inch from the neck point. Now you may wonder, why are we slanting 1 inch for the back and 1.5 inch for the front? That is because the front shoulder line slopes more than the back shoulder line. Okay, the front shoulder line slopes more than the back shoulder line. And again, the shoulder line, the shoulder level tilts to the front. So when you keep it on the same level, you may find out that the shoulder may be pushing backwards, which is not okay. It will not look fine. To have a very balanced shoulder line, the back needs to come a bit to the front, and it balances so well. So it's coming by 0.5 inches. All right, there are instances where you may not consider doing this, especially if it's a boo-boo or something. But for a basic bodice, the normal measurement, the back is higher than the front by 0.5 inches, and that's why it was slant 1.5 inch for the front and 1 inch for the back. And even if you slant 1 inch for the front, you're going to minus 0.5 from the back slant, shoulder slope. All right, I hope this is making sense to you. Now, number 4 thing I need you to know is that when curving your armhole, this is the back arm, the front armhole, this is the armhole here. We usually dip the front than we dip the back, right? When curving the back, the front armhole, we curve by, what I usually do is 0.75, and then the back will be 0.5. So you usually have 0.25 difference from the front and the back, because the back shoulder line or armhole level is wider than the front. So if you make the two of them the same way, you might be having tightness usually at the back side. Okay, and if you use what is not supposed to for the curving of the armhole, you might have a bulge around this armhole area. except you're going to be using a dart to align it properly. But even at that, it should be curved so that the sleeve does not go into the armhole. Okay, so when curving your armhole for the front, always make it deeper than the back armhole. They are not supposed to be the same. Understanding these basic things will help your garments to come out very beautifully and well done, right? Now, one thing that will guide us into knowing how to curve this armhole is having this in mind, that there is something like across back measurements and across front measurements. Now, on the body, you will have somewhere around the middle of the armhole, you will take measurement. This is not the shoulder measurement that is taken at the top of the shoulder. This is taken towards the mid armhole. Okay, at the back, you will measure the across back, and then at the front you measure the across chest. Now I'm telling us this thing so that we know, if we want to make research, we know exactly what we are researching on. So you can go into more research to find out what exactly is the across back and across chest for the front. Okay, now when you have this measurement of the across back, it's when you're curving your armhole, it will help you to know if you have excess at this armhole. Assuming you measured and you have 13 inches at the back, you're going to divide it into two, and that will give you 6.5. So when you fold your fabric, you will measure from after your zipper allowance for the back 6.5, right? Now you have to take these measurements accurately so that you don't run shortage. It's getting into close to the curve of the armhole rather. Okay, so you don't take it a bit far from the armhole. It will help to determine if what you're using to curve the armhole is too much or too small. The same applies to the front. What I'm telling you is what I usually do, and it works out very well. You might decide to curve the back of armhole by 0.5. By the time you take the measurement, you realize that the person does not have any allowance of 0.5, so it will not be necessary curving it that much. Some persons back are quite wider than other people, so you know what exactly applies to each individual. I hope that is well understood. Now the next thing we need to know is that our front half length and our back half length are not usually the same, right? When you're taking your measurements or you're marking your waist measurement for the front, you don't mark the same thing for the back. This is our waist from shoulder to waistline. Assuming we have 17, we do not come to the back and also mark 17. This is quite well done when you take your measurements from shoulder point to the front waistline, and from back nape, the bone at the neckline at the back, to the deepest part of the back waistline. So when you take this measurement, you realize that the two of them are not the same measurement. This is because the front have busts and the back is flat, does not have any bust. So the length will not be the same. And even if you do not take this measurement, always know that they are not, so long as the person is matured, if the person has bust in the front, they will not be the same. So you minus at least 1.5 inch. If you measure from here to here and measure from here to here, if you have 17 for the back, minus 1.5 inch. That is if you did not take the measurement. But the necessary thing is for you to take the measurement. Okay, now the dart line for our front is usually under the bust, the nipple point. So here we have our bust line, and exactly where it is where the nipple point is. You don't have your nipple point here and then take that this way. It will not align properly, except you want to create some designs with the dart. But most especially, you have to take this first before you begin to distribute into other places. So for a normal standard measurement and drafting, the bust, the dart line is usually under your nipple point. Anything aside your nipple point is not well done. I hope this is making sense to you. And then the back waist, the back dart line, you can use your nipple to nipple measurement for the same thing you use for the front to also mark for the back, or you divide your actual measurement, waist measurement, divide it into two to get the dart line. Any of the two is okay. Now another thing is, we hear most of the time people want to make a skirt, the waist to hip line, they'll say is 8 inches. This looks like a standard, but there is no standard in this because our body shape is different. Some persons will have their waist to hip at 9 inches, even 10 inches, all right, depending on the shape of the person and the height of the person. Some people have their buttocks almost at the lap. So you don't take the same thing you mark for someone whose hip is high and mark for the other person whose hip is quite below the normal place it's supposed to be. So if you make a standard of 8 inches, one day you will get disappointed and so what is not normal. So always take the measurement from waist to hip line to determine the waist, the distance between the waist and the hip line. They are not always the same. This thing is not a standard for everyone. There are different shapes, there are different heights, the same as different measurements. Now for the neck width, for our front and back, the neck widths are usually the same. If you mark 3 inches for the back neck width, you're equally going to mark 3 inches for the front neck width. But the depth of the neckline are not the same. So if the depth of the front is 3 inches, the depth of the back will be 1 inch. So you don't mark the same thing for the front and mark the same thing for the back, but their width is the same, but the depth is not the same. The back neck depth is usually higher than the front neck depth, except you want to create a design where the back neck depth will be very deep. Okay, then you know that you're creating a design. But for basic bodies, their depths are not the same. And once you cut anything below the basic measurement of 1 inch for the back and 3 inches for the front, you're going to be contouring the neckline because it's definitely going to gape. Okay, it's going to have excess allowance which will not fit properly on your neckline. So you're going to introduce a dart at the neckline to close up the excess that you have at the neckline. That is, if you cut something like this for the front that is very deep, other than the basic measurements, you're going to be introducing a dart to close it up, to align it properly to fit the roundness of the neckline or the design that you're making. The same applies to the back if it is deeper than what it's supposed to be. Now, one important thing you need to know is that this is the back pattern like this. Now at this point we are going to have the zipper, right? Now the zipper is not supposed to be straight because our back measurements, our back body is not straight. At this waist point it dips inside, so when you fix your zipper straight like this, there's every tendency that it's going to bulge. Now to avoid that bulge, from the point here we're going to measure 0.75 inside and slant it towards the neckline and slant this towards the hip line. All right, so like this we are going to cut it off. Then our normal measurement is going to begin from here. We'll mark our waistline. From here, whatever remains, we'll mark our chest line and all other measurements that we need to mark. Okay, so if you do not remove this, you're going to have a bulge. Now to eliminate bulge at the back zipper line, we do this, and then if you're making a half length bodice, you take your actual shoulder to waist line for the back, and this will help you to eliminate bulge at the back of your bodice. I hope is this has helped you or is going to help you in some way when you're beginning to draft your bodice or cutting your fabric. Okay, so if you find this interesting, like I said, it's not a tutorial on how to cut, but on how to show you the things that you need to do and for you to understand some basic things that will help you in your journey to cutting and sewing your garments very well in such a way that it appears or comes out neatly done. So thank you for watching. If you find this interesting, subscribe to this channel, and I will be giving us more interesting tutorials and videos and calculations that will help us in our sewing journey. Thank you for watching once again. Bye.